I know you don't compete in wheel-to-wheel racing, but I want to use it as a jumping off point to talk about something very important to your safe, fun learning experience in HPDE and track day events. You know, the term racecraft is used to describe the act of passing and being passed in a safe and efficient manner. By efficient, I mean passing in a way that slows you as little as possible and being passed while losing as little as possible. But most important is safety. In the world of non-competitive track day driving, HPD and track day events, it's not about winning or proving who's the fastest. In fact, it's mostly about not getting in each other's way. Having said that, even though we're not talking wheel-to-wheel racing here, there will come a time when you either want to pass or you will be passed. So let's take a look at how to improve what we'll call Passcraft. First, passing on a straightaway, it's pretty darn easy, okay? So I won't spend much time talking about simply driving by another car, although the principles I talk about here do still apply. But let's focus mostly on the passing that happens approaching a corner, near corners, or exiting them, okay? First, be predictable. If you're coming up to pass another car, the one thing you want more than anything else for that other driver to do, this driver here, is you want to know what to expect. And at least 9 times out of 10, you want them to stay on their line, as that's the one place you both know. It's where you expect them to be. So if you're being passed, stay on your line. That's where the other driver expects you to be. Offline, well, there's all sorts of places. You could be left or middle or right or wherever, right? But the line is pretty much the line. So stay there, with one little exception, okay? So if we're coming into the corner and this car moves inside and you want to go there because that's your line, well, you're going to have to stay off that, okay? So obviously if you turn into your predictable line, you'll crash if there's another car there. So that's the one exception to always staying on your line. Having said that, the general rule in any passing situation is the car that's being passed stays on line, and the passing car goes where it needs to make a safe pass. Hey, it's no different than, from how it works on a freeway, or should work at least. The car being passed is in the right lane, and the faster car moves to the left to pass. Again, that's the way it's supposed to work, right? Next, present yourself, okay? So you're coming in, if you're the passing car here, if you're position your car so there's no doubt that you're either passing or you're not passing. For example, if you're passing in the brake zone approaching a corner, a mistake that is often made is moving far inside the car being passed, way over here. The problem with that is the other driver can't see you over here. Again, think of it as driving on a multi-lane freeway. Which car is harder to see, the one in the very next lane to you, or one a couple lanes over? Yes, the one furthest away from you. It's all about positioning your car where you can best be seen by the driver of the other car. Okay? That's presenting yourself. And usually that means no more than having the car a width away, or car's width away from the other car. Okay? So no more than that. Okay? Not way over here. If you're further away from the other car, the other driver probably can't see you, and you have actually increased the likelihood for a collision. Again, position yourself no more than a car's width away from the other car, that you're going into side by side into a corner. Sure, it feels safer being farther over here, but it's actually more dangerous. If you're being passed, keep in mind that not every driver has heard this advice or learned through experience where to position their car. If you notice another car behind you, and then as you enter the brake zone for a corner, you don't see it behind you or beside you, I'll guarantee that it hadn't just disappeared. In most cases, it's far to the inside, towards the inside of the upcoming corner. Don't assume that just because you can't see it that it's not there. In fact, assume that it is there, and be prepared to adapt your line to compensate for it. In other words, give the other car room. Yes, you're making up for another driver's lack of knowledge or mistake, but that's a whole lot better than having an incident and then arguing over who was right. Keep at least a car's width and a half open in here if you're unsure whether there's another car next to you or not. It's a good rule. Car and a half width, give yourself that room. Okay, back to passing another car. It's also critical to position your car to where both you and the other driver are perfectly clear as to who has the right of way going into and through the corner. Technically, no one has the right of way, but we talk about who owns the corner, who controls it. The guideline here is a driver on the inside, as long as their front nose is at least equal with the front wheels of the car being passed. They own the corner. In other words, the driver controls it, meaning they can now drive the line that they want. Okay? Within reason, obviously, as you can't just force the other car off the track. So, as a passing driver, your goal is to get your car's nose at least equal with the front wheels of the car you're passing. If you can't get that far alongside, don't. Slow down and just let the other car lead you in and through the corner and work on passing later. Now, having said that, one thing that causes more arguments than anything is a disagreement as to how far alongside one car is on another. It's an argument no one wins. And if you're being passed and there's a car somewhere near having its nose even with your front wheels, hey, anywhere alongside you, just let it go. This is not racing, and there's nothing to gain by arguing over who has control of a corner. If in doubt, don't pass. You can't go wrong with that guideline. Of course, there comes a time where you need to commit to the pass you're making as well. If every time you attempt to pass, you have some doubt and then hang back, you're never going to complete a pass. And that can cause as much of a problem as being too assertive, because it leads to confusion on your part and on the part of the driver you're attempting to pass. If the other driver is unsure what you're doing because you're unsure, their focus is on you instead of where it should be, driving their car. You know, a common problem is when a driver being passed is unsure of what the passing driver is doing, gets confused, loses focus on their own driving, overcooks a corner, and spins and crashes into the car attempting to pass. No one wins in that situation, right? So as the passing driver, there does come a time when you need to commit to making the pass. That may require braking a little lighter than usual, or easing off then towards the end of the brake zone, just enough so you get far enough up alongside the car to control the corner with the nose of your car even with the front wheels of the other car, at least that far. And if that sounds like you might then be entering the corner with a little more speed than usual, yeah, you could be right. But that's okay, because you can just keep a slight amount of brake on while entering the corner, and then you'll merge back on your normal line at your usual speed. And who knows, you might actually learn that you can carry a bit more speed into the corner. Okay, you can also see here that there's sort of a go, no-go point, a decision point where in here you have to decide where you're going to go. And that's the point where you need to either commit and go for the pass or not. Again, if in doubt, just don't pass. No one wins a track day or HPDE event, but start thinking in terms of a go, no-go point, and you'll find yourself making better decisions. Speaking of merging back on your line, that's what you need to do as soon as possible. As soon as you possibly can when you're passing or being passed. Well, the goal when passing and approaching a corner is to get in front enough to own that corner. The next goal is to minimize the impact of doing so and getting back to how you were driving the rest of the corner as soon as possible. In other words, you want to next focus on a nice smooth acceleration out of the corner. Therefore, once you've initiated your pass, look to merge in your line and back to the normal line so you can get a good exit. And think about getting that good exit. And you know what that means, right? Looking ahead to where you want to go, eyes up, looking ahead. Okay? The same thing applies to being passed. You want to lose as little time as possible when being passed, and that means tucking back onto your line behind the passing car as soon as possible. You know, it's easy to get overly focused on the passing car. So think about and look for your line using your normal references. Sure, sometimes the passing car can actually block your view of the reference points, which is why it's important to have more references, what I call secondary references. These could be a seam in the pavement, a tree or pole in the distance, the angle your car is at when passing a certain point, or whatever helps you know you're heading in the usual direction. Of course, you can't wait until you're being passed to identify and begin using those references. No, they're something you should practice using well before you get into a passing situation. Now, when being passed, it often will benefit you to actually ease off the throttle a little earlier when approaching a corner. So this car is coming up like this, you can just ease off a little bit, let it go by, and then tuck in like that. How it benefits you is by ensuring that you both don't arrive at the turning point side by side, which is going to mean that both of you are going to have to slow more for the corner. It's better to be slightly behind the other car, and if that means breathing out of the throttle just before the brake zone to let the other car get slightly past you, that's a better compromise. And when I say breathe out of the throttle, that doesn't mean a big, long lift of the throttle. It also doesn't mean braking. That can cause your car to slow so much that another car behind you could be caught off guard and run into the back of you. So just ease out of the throttle just enough to allow the other car to get by you, and then squeeze back on the throttle. Okay? In wheel-to-wheel racing, the rule is that it's the responsibility of the overtaking car to complete the pass safely. This guideline is a good place to start. That does not mean, though, that the driver being passed can just slam into the overtaking car and point the finger at the other driver, right? The same mindset should be in place for Passcraft situation at track day and HPDE events. The overtaking driver is most responsible for making a clean, safe pass. But again, you're in this together, so cooperate. It's better to have the mindset that you're both responsible. Passing and being passed safely and efficiently, Passcraft, is all about communication and cooperation. When you and another driver approach a braking zone together, you're entering into a contract, one that says, hey, let's work together to benefit both of us. Let's agree to communicate and cooperate in a way that results in both of us getting around this track safely and quickly. As with most things in life, the more you communicate, the better the outcome. The main way to communicate with other drivers is with hand signals. If a driver is caught up to you, there's a reason for that. They're faster than you. No, that's not a knock against your driving or your car, so don't take it personally. The best way for you to practice your driving to improve your speed and consistency is to give that other driver a hand signal, a point by, and let them go. Then you can go back to focusing on your own driving. Even the top race drivers in the world will give a faster driver a point by, so it's actually a sign of being a great, aware driver. Now, I shouldn't need to remind you of this, but I will anyways. Some cars are fast, but driven by less experienced drivers. Some are slower, but driven by faster drivers. Some drivers are willing to push their cars closer to limits, while others are not. None of these are bad, and they say nothing about how good a person we are. We're all learning, and we can always improve. And unfortunately, we all make mistakes. The goal is to make fewer mistakes by understanding the guidelines and mindset of Passcraft, and know that a mistake is not intentional. And if other drivers have the same approach, they can help compensate for others' mistakes. Finally, know the rules of the organization you're running with. Some allow passing only in designated areas of the track, such as certain straightaways and not in brake zones, and only if the driver being passed communicates with the passing driver with a point by. That point by could be a physical point of the hand to the side the passing should take place on, either pointing out the window to the left, or to the right over the roof of the car, or inside the cockpit of the car. Or it could be with the use of turn signals. Here again, there are different uses of the turn signals, depending on the organization putting on the event. Some use the turn signal to tell the passing car which side to pass on, while others use it to tell the passing car where it is going. That's why it's critical you know the rules of the organization you're driving with. Passcraft. Learning to pass and be passed can be as challenging and as fun as simply driving fast. And like driving fast, there's an infinite number of scenarios and situations you'll find yourself in. And therefore, there will always be more for you to learn. So, keep learning and having fun.